Managing Director of Plain Talking, a communications agency, and he joins us now via video link for some insights. Mr. Burns, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Superior, hi, good evening, and to everyone who's watching this evening.
All right, it's an absolute pleasure having you join us this evening. Sir, first of all, from your vantage point as a communications and aviation expert, just how critical is a system like the flight plan management system, and what kind of cascading disruptions can it trigger across the broader aviation ecosystem? So
let's just try and dispel and unpack, because I watched the clip you just ran, yeah. And I think the official who was speaking very technological, lots of jargon. Basically what happens is, before a flight takes off and is going to go into controlled airspace, that's the airspace that's managed by air traffic controllers, the pilot or the dispatcher has to file a flight plan, and give a takeoff time, or a startup time and a takeoff time, and estimate of how long it's going to take to get to the destination. If there's a delay in the startup and that delay exceeds half an hour, then that flight plan is meant to automatically be deleted, and the pilot or the dispatcher has to file another one. Now, what happens when you file a flight plan is the system generates a 4-digit code called a squawk code, and that the pilot then keys into the transponder of the aircraft, so that when the aircraft is in the sky and the air traffic controller's radar picks up the blip of the aircraft, it just sees, the metal blip of the aircraft on the screen, they can associate that transponder code with that particular flight and flight plan. And what was happening today was that flight plans that were meant to have been deleted because there were some delays earlier today caused by other congestion. And when the pilots or the dispatchers were filing the new flight plans and getting new codes, the controllers were then being confronted with 2 different codes for the same flights, because the first code and the first flight plan that should have automatically been deleted wasn't. And that then created confusion, and it meant they've had to check everything throughout the entire system. Now, the other thing that then happens is you have one delay. One aircraft doesn't just fly once in a day. It might go from Johannesburg to Durban, back to Johannesburg, then on to Cape Town, then maybe to PE, and then up to Joburg and back. It might do 4 or 5 flights a day. So if the first of those flights is delayed, that aircraft is going to be delayed on all of its subsequent flights throughout the day. Now, I checked in with one of the airlines this afternoon, Airlink, at about 3 o'clock. And they'd already said to me then, we can tell that we'll have 83 flights affected today.
Right.
That's one airline, 83 flights, and all of those customers. And the other pain point, and again, the person who was on that video clip was saying, well, it's not our problem as the air traffic navigation service. Yeah. We're not responsible for the passengers. Well, yes, the airlines are responsible for looking after their passengers, but they get no recourse from ATNS.
All right. Now, Mr. Burns, in as much as you've just simplified some of the complexities that could have potentially led to the disruptions today, how should the authorities then balance the technical complexities of system recovery with the need for transparency and public accountability, especially when critical infrastructure fails so suddenly?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and this is something that as an industry we've been asking for over a year now, because if we go back to mid-July last year, ATNS overnight withdrew over 320 procedures that pilots rely on in the country and airlines rely on for maintaining their schedules. These are the standard takeoff, departure, and arrival, and some of the en route procedures that pilots have to comply with for navigation. And that was because ATNS had not maintained their compliance. It was a paperwork exercise. They're still struggling through the backlog. There's still about 300 of those that haven't been reapproved, and they're supposed to be audited and approved every 5 years. So, we've got a massive backlog that's been caused by, frankly, poor management by ATNS. And now this has happened, which again just says, hang on, there are deeper systemic problems. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware or if viewers are aware There've also been issues with their payroll system at ATNS. So a lot of their staff didn't get paid last month. And I saw this afternoon Solidarity had sent a letter to the management saying, hey, you know, we've become aware that you've got IT systems affecting your payroll as well. So, you know, again, it points to a broader malaise and, frankly, you know, bad management there. We're not quite sure why it's all going wrong so horribly, but when it does go wrong, it goes wrong spectacularly, and it affects so many people. And it affects.
You just pointed out bad management at the ATNS. And what does this failure then suggest about the state of IT infrastructure redundancy and, I would say, resilience within South Africa's air traffic management systems? Was there perhaps warning signs or industry red flags previously raised? I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Burns, we've seen a passenger pass through the OR Tambo International Airport with 2 hand grenades undetected until he was nabbed at the Bole International Airport in Ethiopia.
So let's just separate these two things, and we'll come back to the grenade story, because they weren't actually real grenades either. They were training devices. But to come back to your first point, the IT systems, there is a redundant system that ATNS use in case one fails. It's meant to switch over to the other. The information I had, and I'm waiting for ATNS to try and confirm this, is that there'd been a problem with backing up the system, including the backup system, and that it became corrupted. So again, this is about housekeeping. This is about doing proper diligence and oversight of your own systems and making sure that you are keeping on top of these things. It's all very good having a backup as a fail-safe, but then you've got to make sure that it is still maintained as well. All right. Now, if we come back to the issue around the passenger security, the baggage security issue, I think, you know, we've got to be very careful there. There is an ongoing arm wrestling match, if you like, between AXA and the service provider that is appointed by the airlines to do the whole baggage screening. And AXA have been trying to bring that, after 20 years of being quite happy to not have the responsibility for that and for agreeing to have that outsourced, they now want to bring it in-house, as they do with several other functions like fuel supplies. And that's been the topic of a court dispute which found against the airports company and the Civil Aviation Authority. And this week there's been mediation, but convened by the Minister of Transport between those two parties. But that's a very separate issue from what we're seeing with air traffic navigation services today.
All right, Mr. Burns, I have so many questions, believe me, but time is really not on our side. But thank you so much for joining us this evening.
That's a pleasure.
All right, that was Mr. Linden Burns. He's the Managing Director of Plain Talking, a communications agency, joining us via video link to talk to us about the developments with regards to the technical disruptions that have been experienced at the OR Tambo International Airport.